I gotta start the tape, so just give me a second.
It's not 7 o'clock yet.
Yeah, they kept talking.
And some parents are never gonna understand it because it just don't go through their mind right before that happens. Switch course. Get started early. Okay, we will call the Wednesday, January 8th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Roll call.
Lloyd Johnson, liaison host.
Mike Scanlon.
Tracy Gurno.
Sylvia Henry.
Justin Emery.
Jeff Belcher. Jeff Belcher.
Ryan Griffin.
And now we will stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before asking for approval agenda, I would like to make one amendment to the agenda and add election of officers. Now I will call for a motion for approval of agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
No, with the amendment.
Yeah, the amendment. She just made an amendment to it.
For the election of officers.
Awesome.
Motion is on the floor and seconded for approval of agenda with amendment to add election of officers. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now ask for a motion for approval of minutes from the November 13th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion is on the floor for approval of minutes from the November 13th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public hearing.
Should we do the officers first, maybe?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So we need a chair and a vice chair.
So we have a chair.
Have to re-elect.
We have to do it every year.
Okay.
Every year.
Well, I'll make a motion to keep Tracy as chair. I'll second that.
Any other nominations for chair?
I will make a motion to elect Mike Scanlon.
You accept Mike? You have to accept the nomination.
For
Be
chair?
chair, yeah.
No.
Any other further nominations? Deb, I'm gonna let you call for vote since I'm on there.
Okay, so we have a motion by Scanlon, second by Emery to make Tracy chair. Mike?
Yes. Aye.
Okay, Tracy, you're abstaining.
Yep.
Sylvia?
No.
Justin?
Yes.
Okay, so
Now I will entertain a motion for nominations for vice chair.
I'll make a motion to make Mike Scanlon vice chair.
I'll second it.
Mike, do you accept the
Sure.
nomination?
Yep.
Okay. Motion is on the floor and seconded to have Mike Scanlon as vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mike is now the vice chair.
Okay.
At this time, I will close the meeting at 7:05 and open the public hearing to consider a zoning ordinance amendment and city code amendment, administrative fines and abatement of nuisances. And open the public hearing at 7:06.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a public hearing to consider a zoning ordinance amendment and a city code amendment related to administrative fines and an abatement process ordinance. The city has an existing abatement ordinance and an administrative fine ordinance. What this is doing here is just kind of cleaning up a little bit and kind of modernizing a little bit. And so I can kind of go over the various sections here from top to bottom here. If we, I'll just start on page 10 in your packet. And this is the zoning ordinance amendment section. And I've added a section right there at the top that just states that a violation of the zoning ordinance is considered a misdemeanor. And that kind of gives a kind of a blanket policy to the zoning ordinance that any violation is a misdemeanor and could be processed as such. So that's what that is about there. And then if we move on to page 11, the failure to correct zoning violation section, I've added a section in there that an administrative fine is an option. So we wouldn't necessarily jump straight to a criminal charge of a misdemeanor. I'm adding in there that we have the option to give an administrative fine. And then if we skip to page, let's see, where's the next one? So then on page 13 is the city code side of it. So there's kind of two sections in the city code that deal with administrative penalties and administrative enforcement. It's in chapter 10 and also in chapter 25. And so this section here kind of, there's kind of bits and pieces in both areas. So I'll kind of go over the updates. Kind of starting on page 14, the abatement of nuisances. I put that first section in there. That the city may abate a nuisance after a property owner has received an administrative citation. And the idea behind that is we would move to give someone an administrative citation first before we went with the full out abatement. And that kind of ties into the following pages on later in the ordinance, and what the idea is that the money that you would collect from an administrative fine or numerous fines would go to pay for an abatement. It certainly would not cover all of the abatement, but it's meant to be a subsidy. The way our fee schedule is set up right now is an administrative fine is $100, and then each day would be a new violation. So it's not a progressive scale like you see in some places where first fine is $100, then second is $500, then third is $1,000, and it just keeps going, up and up and up. Ours is just, it's $100 and every day is a new violation. So after you have racked up a number of administrative fines, and if you're just not getting anywhere, then you would move to the more drastic abatement process.
So it's $100 a day?
You would have to make an effort to charge them every single day, which would mean like an officer or a staff member would have to go out there and document the violation literally every day. Okay. So it's unlikely we would do it that frequently. It would probably be bi-weekly or once every 3 weeks or 4 weeks, however the process decides to lay out. I'm kind of moving on to page 16.
One question.
Yeah.
if it was really bad, you could do it every day.
You could.
You
I,
could.
if it was real bad, I think we would move to the abatement process sooner rather than later.
All right. I'm just making sure
Yeah.
that we have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that you move to it, but just, you should have it in there just in case.
Yeah, the way this is set up is there is a little bit of flexibility with how soon we go to abatement. I do have it in here, I know on one page where, I know I have it in here that we don't have to do an administrative fine first. We can go straight to an abatement. And that would be used in a real extreme case. So you have flexibility depending on how big of a problem it is. Is it just the person didn't get a permit for a above ground pool? Well, we're probably gonna go the fine route in something like that. We're not gonna have the pool abated. At the same time, if someone's got 10 junk cars on their front property, we're gonna be moving towards the abatement sooner rather than later.
We do, just to give you an example, we do have a property in town that I've been dealing with for quite a while. And they are not fixing it, and I need something that helps me take care of this in the spring because he has affected the neighboring property.
Right.
So
That's what I'm saying.
I need something a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
My question is, and I know we talked just about fines, and so I'm sorry that I didn't bring this up when we talked about this originally, but when we talk about abatement, how does it typically work in any city or ordinance? Do you always have to, because I know right now our ordinance reads that I have to get permission from the property owner to go on their property to abate that, and that's all, well, that's not gonna work. So is that how it typically works, and is that what ordinances usually say, or is there different wording you can have for that?
There's a couple different routes you can take to get to that point. The way we have it set up here is we have kind of, if you go to page 17, the appeal process, that kind of lays out essentially like a hearing that the person would have for the fine side of it. For the abatement side of it, there's two routes you can take through the court. One would be a criminal charge, or one would be a civil charge. The criminal charge is a little bit cheaper, and what you would do is we would charge them as a misdemeanor violation, and we would take them to court. They have to appear in court for that. And there's a pre-trial, there's all this other stuff that goes into it. And in most cases, what will happen is hopefully they'll see the light and they'll realize that they're about to lose, and they're going to lose bad, and it's going to be bad. No one wants a misdemeanor criminal charge on their record. It affects a snowball of things. It's a little bit cheaper than a civil process, which I'll explain here in a second. The fear is with it is that you're not necessarily correcting the violation. Someone could just say, well, I've got a misdemeanor charge on my record, so what? And then the process literally starts over, and you've literally gotten nowhere after months of that process. The civil route, it tends to cost more, but what that route would be is where we would, the city would sue them, saying that they're in violation of the zoning ordinance, and we would take them to civil court, and we would get a judge to say that they have to clean up the violation, and if they don't clean up the violation, the city has the right to go and clean up the violation and charge the cost onto the tax rolls, and the city in theory walks away with zero costs at that point, but that doesn't really, there's always costs to these things that don't get run up from all the chips going back and forth, but the cost of the abatement then gets put on the tax rolls, and the attorney fees get put on the tax rolls. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of dollars that they're going to get slammed with, and the city gets their site cleaned up. In both cases, it's extremely rare to see things play out all the way to the bitter end. And in the civil case, it's almost annoying when that happens because then the city doesn't get their money back on the abatement or the attorney's fees. But there's basically those two routes that the city can take. And if it's coming down to that, typically what we would do is we would go to the council and say, we've sent letters, we've done this, we've done that, we've gotten absolutely nowhere. We're recommending, kind of between Deb and I will decide which route, and then the attorney will decide which route that we want to take. But it's so rare that it comes down to that in my experience.
And just letting you know, as you're considering this, I have some properties that we need to go to that route.
Well, I have some questions too.
When you talk about, I also want to share with you, when you talk about the finding process, the way ours is right now, I have literally had, when you're talking about swimming pools, I literally have had a person that has one in the front yard. I said, you can't have it. I went and talked to him. I showed him the ordinance and he goes, you go ahead and fine me every year, because he said, I'm not moving my pool. So he goes, go ahead and fine me $100. So I need something better.
Did he realize it's $100 a day, not?
It isn't now. If it isn't now, that's why I want to change it.
I thought it was changed to $100 a day.
I thought the way it read was it's $100 a day, or it's, or,
Yeah, because each day is a new.
But someone has to
They
go
have
out
to
there.
go over and
Yeah, someone has to
document.
document
Yeah,
every
yeah.
single day as an occurrence. And,
Yeah.
staffing wise, that's kind of.
and then you also have to consider if it ends up in front of a judge, then is a judge going to take pity on someone that was fined $100 every day? Or is the judge going to say that's not reasonable, it should have been more spread out than that?
Yeah, but you've got to pick your battles as far as that
Yeah.
goes, because you're talking about a swimming pool. Somebody's kid falls in the pool, they drown, they die.
Mhm.
That's a completely, that's a pretty egregious deal, as opposed to somebody that's got a bunch of junk cars in their lot. So, seems to me that we have to pattern these ordinances to the worst case scenario. You've got to be able to figure that it's going to have to go to the bitter end. Otherwise, you're going to go through all of this and you're going to lose. Like you said, the city's not going to get anything. So it seems to me if we're going to do this, we have to make it so that it does have teeth and it does go to the bitter end. And that we can take care of things like that. You brought that up before in another meeting. And the first thing that came to my mind was, where's the fence around the pool? Where's the ordinance that calls for the fence for anybody that's got a pool? When I grew up in Bloomington, you had to have a fence around your yard if you had a pool. Simple as that. That's an easy way to fix it too.
And we have some issues with that as well.
Right, so going through all of doing all this, it better have some teeth to it. And are we gonna get some examples of other cities? I thought I read in there, or heard at one point in time that was part of what we were gonna look at.
I can bring in some examples next month. I don't have any
Right.
with me tonight, but
But,
I have some questions when you're done explaining. Because, it says that enforcement procedure, the first violation shall be sent by regular mail, and the second notice will be sent by certified mail or return receipt to request of the property owner.
What page are you on?
Yeah,
I'm on page 10. So my question is, we're sending them
yeah.
2 letters, and then it goes to council? The business I work in, we have to notify the patient 3 times before we can send them a certified letter. So they get a regular letter 3 times, and then they get a certified. And the only reason I'm saying that is, okay, somebody might just throw that first letter away, so I'm thinking that you need to say, okay, 3 letters by regular mail, once a week for 3 weeks, and then that 4th week they get the certified, and then it goes to council. Because then you try for a month to get a hold of them. I guess I don't know, I feel like we should.
If you have an emergency situation, though,
That's right.
that's too long a period.
Yep.
I know now what I do is I send a letter out regular mail. And then what we have done is certified, and we also have had the sheriff's department post it or deliver it to them. So,
Well, yeah, because the way this written, it's just basically saying they're getting 2
Yeah.
notices.
Say, on a regular order, can you have a request that they received it, you know, like?
Yeah, one of them would be certified or registered.
But so we're just giving
I
them
know that.
2 letters and then it goes to council.
One of them,
So, but I'm just saying, 2 letters and then it goes to council, so the 2 letters, is that letter like once 1 week and then one the next week, or how do we? I guess we need to me, you need to outline that saying, okay, the first letter's going out, will be mailed today, and then a week later, if they don't take care of it, we're gonna mail it certified, so, we have a timeline of stating within, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when I put together code enforcement letters, the amount of time I give them to clean up tends to vary depending on how bad it is. If they haven't been mowing their lawn, well, I'm gonna give you 7 days.
okay.
Maybe 10 if it's forecasted to rain every day. If somebody's got, a scrapyard on their property, then I'm probably gonna push it out to 30. Because
That's kind of
you have to think about,
Depending on what the violation is.
yeah,
Okay.
you have to think about what's reasonable to try to work with them and bring them into compliance. It's not about dropping the hammer right away.
Well, no, I'm
It's
just saying,
about-
I'm just
yeah.
wondering if that shouldn't be outlined in someplace in here that states, okay, so these type of violations are 7 to 10 days to fix, these type of violations are 30 days to fix. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that Deb has something to base it on, stating, okay, this is a violation, okay, you can go back and look at it, and it says according to city ordinance, you have 7 to 10 days to fix it. Okay, this is the violation, you have 30 days. So that it's all outlined in there, so that people can't come back and say, well, he got 7 days and I got 30 days. It's outlined stating, these are the type of violations, this is how much time typically we give you to fix it. You see what I'm saying? So that people can't come back and say, oh, my neighbor got 7 and, how come I got 30? Because it's gonna happen. Am I wrong?
No.
Explain
But
that?
yet
No,
at the
but it-
same time, Deb would know if it's somebody that needs the hammer right away because she's been working with them.
Well, I always put something in the letter that says, please contact me to discuss it if you just saying if it's gonna be a burden or a hardship, and we can talk about it, because I wanna work with people, I'm not gonna,
yeah.
because some people do have financial hardships, and so I'm not gonna burden people when they can't afford it, so I'm gonna work with them and get a time frame of, we'll do this at this time, we'll do this at that time, and yes, if they don't follow through, then of course I'm gonna have to put the hammer down a little bit.
But would it make your job easier to just kind of have,
That would help.
Yeah,
a-
I'm sure
a
some of
certain
that
ones.
is scattered throughout the evidence, or throughout the ordinance.
Right.
It probably says 7 days for lawn mowing,
but just
but
like.
we
put
can
it in
consolidate that into
Yeah.
one spot, yeah.
Just put like a graph in there or a box or something that says, these are examples of what 7 to 10 days, this is, 30 days. Just so that it gives you some more teeth to work with, you know what I mean? So that it's outlined for people that they can't come back and complain, this happened to my neighbor.
Well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, but everybody's gonna be in kind of a different situation.
Right.
Which, so it's always gonna kind of have to be determined how long it's gonna
But
take
if
you.
you have some
Right,
guidelines
right,
set
that's
up,
on- yeah.
that-
But
I can tell you that typically for lawn mowing, it's 7 days, just like you said,
Yeah.
and for blight, as I call it, it's 30 days that they have to clean it up.
Then also that period, you're gonna collect $100 a day. If you mention that, also if they wanna go 30 days and then they don't do it, well, they still got a $3,000 fine.
No, because you have to give them time
Yeah, you
before you
can't-
fine
yeah.
them.
Right,
At the same time, they're cleaning it up.
right. You
Yeah.
have to serve them,
notified.
right, you have to serve them, notify them, and
Yeah,
then.
you
say
want to
if
give them a
it's-
chance to correct it
If
first.
it's not cleaned up by this day, then we will start finding you,
Yeah.
something.
The the point in the early stages is to work with them and bring them into compliance. And then if you're just getting nowhere, then you move to fines. If you're still getting nowhere, then you move to the more extreme abatement or court stuff. It's meant to be, stepping up to certain levels depending on, how easy they are to work with. I mean, and most people will clean up when you send them a letter. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, I would say the first letter is effective in my experience with code enforcement.
Sometimes some people just need a little push.
Yeah, and sometimes, that I've had people say that to me where they've said like, yeah, I've been meaning to get rid of it, and your letter just gave me the motivation to finish this up.
And people don't understand the word, they don't know the ordinance either. They move to town, they don't know the ordinance, so we're going to work on, in our newsletter, putting more information so people, especially like swimming pools, because we had an issue with swimming pools. We're going to work on informing people better that way as well, so that they know.
Common sense tells me to put a fence around it.
But that swimming pool, shouldn't they have a permit to do that?
You don't have to have a permit for certain size.
Okay, I have a question on page 15 where it says the code compliance officer. Any officer of the Wright County Sheriff's Department, any employee of the city of Montrose, or any person or company contracted to provide code enforcement services who has received official authority by the Minnesota Montrose City Council to enforce this code. Does that mean all the employees of City Hall are code enforcement or code compliance officers, or is that designated? I guess I'm just looking for.
I think our city attorney, and correct me if I'm wrong, he wanted us to be more generic like that.
Okay.
Not to specify one person.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of places in the code that have language like that just says a designated member, and it's just someone from staff that has been assigned that duty, just like
take
any.
a picture or something.
Yeah.
Don't we have that now, Deb, with Heidi? Isn't that her job?
No, it's mine. I'm going to
Yeah,
go
but I
check
thought that
properties.
we hired Heidi to help you enforce the,
She's writing the letters for me. She's writing the letters and she rides along with me to take the pictures so that we can take pictures as we're going up and down the roads. And I know in other places in our ordinance it says city administrator, we don't have a city administrator
Right,
anymore.
and that's not what I'm.
And I know that what you have here is what our attorney told us, that we need to be more generic, so that.
That's why I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask. I didn't know.
Because if someone leaves a position, then yes, a public works guy, like you said, can go out and do it if they need to, so.
Okay, all right. And then the last question I have is on page 17 where it says, hearing officer of the city council shall by resolution from time to time appoint a list of persons authorized to act as a hearing officer. I think that should be done ahead of that ever having to go to a hearing.
Well, and where do you get the list?
Right.
So what this
Who are
is.
the people that are out there that do
Yeah,
this?
so somebody can, so what the city council will do, if we adopt this section here, is we'll come up with a list of hearing officers that would basically act as somewhat of like an arbitrator would in this case, but not arbitration because they could make a ruling either for or against or kind of down the middle. And then we would have a hearing with that, with the resident who's in violation, the city, and the hearing officer.
I understand what you're doing. My question is, where do you get the people to do the job of hearing officer?
So,
Is there a magical list someplace that I
It
don't know
says the city
of?
council shall
Yeah.
appoint.
so the
Yeah,
city
but-
council so what we'll do is we'll have
What are the qualifications to be appointed to do
Yeah.
this job?
Right.
So, yeah, the city, so as staff, we'll come to the city council with a recommendation for a list of hearing officers. Typically, it's an attorney, hopefully a land use attorney,
Okay.
not the city attorney, not a public defender, but someone.
So there are some qualifications.
Yeah, that's who we would be looking for, is a land use attorney that's not not affiliated with Montrose in any way, just a neutral third party is what we're going for there.
Maybe that neutral third-party language might want to be
Yeah,
in
'cause I
there
was like-
somewhere.
Thinking, are they gonna appoint just like general public?
Yeah, if you're-
Yeah, exactly,
Well,
because.
Yeah, the city council could appoint themselves to decide if they're right or
Right.
wrong.
Right, so that's why I was like,
The
what's
same
this
thing is,
thing?
where's the list?
Yeah, who's on this list and who makes this list?
Yeah, so, yeah, that needs to be cleaned up.
So could you have like, such as a land use attorney, could you have something like that in there? Or what would you recommend? What do they do for other cities?
I think this is the language that other cities
Oh, okay,
use, so,
okay.
but we can clean ours up and make it more specific with what we're looking for.
Okay.
Because I was, reading it going,
Yeah,
who?
right. Who's gonna
And they
do
need
it?
to appoint this person before this ever happens, you know what I mean? Before, we need to have that in place before we are.
Yeah, we would do that right away after the ordinance passes. We would make some calls and see who would be willing to do that and kind of get a list together of.
Okay, so I'm the only one thinking.
No, it's right there with it.
Okay,
That was the last thing that I.
me too. Anybody else have any questions? Justin and Sylvia? No?
So then you're gonna bring us a copy of another city or so.
Yeah, we can do that too.
So then next month, we can try and send it to council if we can, if we look at, another cities and say ours looks good, then we can try and send it to council next month. So that we can keep moving and on to the next thing that we need to do, so we can get more accomplished.
But this, this is like the foundation.
Great.
You don't
It
have
is.
this, and everything else is just gonna crumble away.
Right.
And so, we've gotta make sure that this is really.
Yeah, I want you to take
spot
the
on.
time with it.
Right,
and,
I
yeah,
agree, because it's too important.
yeah.
And this is how everybody, everything mushrooms out of control, and everybody gets PO'd at each other over these kind of things. I've seen it happen before.
I certainly like the way that it looks, what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's got more teeth than what we have now. I think it gives you more authority. I just would, just like to see this in other city, how they, have it in there, and then, try and put that language of hearing officer a little bit more defined.
Yeah.
Could you, but with them giving you kind of what they're looking for, do you know of particular cities that their ordinances would be good ones to look at for what they're,
I think Otsego has a really
Okay.
good one. I know that they put a lot of time and money into theirs. It was a few years ago now. So that's one that comes to mind that's out here. A lot of the other metro areas around here, I know I haven't touched theirs in a long time. I think Albertville actually recently redid theirs. I borrowed some from them.
Look for the fastest growing community and go to them. They're
Right.
probably the ones that had to do it.
Right.
State Michael would be a perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rogers, being on the edge,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they get built up and they're running into, places I would think that they would be the ones that would deal with.
What about
have their
Monticello,
buildings.
I wonder?
Yeah, Monticello, Big Lake would be another one.
Right, Big Lake, Becker.
Yeah.
Kind of, like, Becker to me is more like our, Becker, we like, are more kind of like our community type, area.
More rural.
More rural, Albertville's a little more city, but they probably have a pretty good one too, but, I just think cleaning, at least that, putting a little more definition of what a hearing officer is in there would make me feel a little better. Because I was reading it going, who is that person? Who's the city council going to appoint? Is it just gonna be someone off the street or,
Actually, if that's the case, I got a good one. My brother-in-law.
Well, you know what, it might be a good thing for us to have maybe a team, like a hearing officer and a panel to work with that hearing officer. You know what I'm saying? Because I know it goes
Like
to
a three-person panel.
Right,
type,
so the
yeah.
hearing officer and then like 3 other people on that panel, so that it's more of
It's not all on
it's
one
not
person.
all one person, it's kind of a group decision, Just
I
a
can't
thought.
imagine it go, how often.
Probably doesn't happen very often.
That's one of the rare cases.
Yeah, it wouldn't be used very often because typically you're gonna go, you're gonna go the criminal charge abatement route rather than, it's up to the person. who's being fined if they think that they've got a shot at getting this appealed through the hearing officer. So I guess how much slack do you want to give them if they're trying to just drag it out? But if we wanted to be thorough, be fair, we could consider a 3-person panel instead of an officer. Or say a violator has the option to do either one.
What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, that's kind of tricky.
I think it should be a lawyer, a land use lawyer.
Yeah.
You got to think about trying to
Protect
coordinate and
us.
schedule all this stuff
And then,
too.
you know, if you're talking a 3-person panel, now you're talking about finding 3 people. The connection grows as you put more and more people on it.
It's harder to
So-
make a decision when
Yeah.
you have more people.
Right,
And
I think a
you
single
have to have an
person.
expertise.
Because in a way, this person is gonna mediate a little bit too.
Right.
Because the city's gonna be on one side, you know, they're gonna be on the other side. Even though the hearing officer for the city, they're still gonna have to try to mediate this thing a little bit, I would think.
Mhm.
It's
For
just like
everything.
anything
And
that
that's something
goes to
that- yeah.
court, there's a
Yeah,
judge.
right,
and- yeah.
right,
I'm just trying to,
yeah.
No,
Bounce
no, I
ideas
totally
off.
get what you're saying.
Right, we wouldn't have to use it, but you want it in place if you do have to use it.
But that's why I'd like to see what other cities do,
Right.
to see how they're set
How
up a
does their
little bit,
wording-
to see see how they, you know, maybe they do a panel, maybe they do it that way, maybe they don't, but it would be nice to look at it. Because we're kind of flying blind a little bit.
Right.
Yep.
You know, I really believe we went through this and Dale Powers was the officer at that time for,
It was a separate document, it wasn't,
Was it?
it wasn't part of the ordinance, it's a document, it never got passed, because it was right before, he was released, and there was some things that the council didn't agree with, but it was called administrative,
yeah, I can't,
it was like a guideline of what
Yeah.
they could do. I wouldn't know, I don't remember what the name is.
Yeah,
Administrative.
yeah, I can't either.
That was gonna throw a big expense too, because he had lined up somebody to train somebody at $700 to $1,000 up in Dassel. Well, I don't think we need to do that.
No, he came and asked me while I was working for the city of Dassel if I would work part-time for him doing code enforcement. He drove to Dassel one day and asked me if I would come and if they could hire me part-time to do code enforcement.
So what did they have in Dassel, when you're familiar with that? Doing.
You would be more familiar with it than I am. I was only there for 2 months and I was there to get their books in line.
Yeah, you
for
know,
the
I'll be
audit.
honest with you, I don't remember anything in ours. We had a couple of things that came up when I was mayor. And, you know, we just ended up sending the letter, and then that got to be kind of a problem. Then, one day I just sent one of the Meeker County sheriffs out there that was our guy and said, go talk to him.
Mhm.
And then they seemed to work it out.
Yeah.
We've never had anything come to the council. But I don't remember anything in our ordinance that had anything but a, you know, any kind of a person to be there. I can't think of the name of it right now. But we were talking.
Hearing officer.
Hearing officer.
I don't remember, I don't think we had anything for that.
Yeah, I was only there 2 months doing financial work, so I have no
And to be
clue.
honest with you, most of it got cleaned up. So there really wasn't a lot of issues in the town anyway.
So we just have more issues.
Yeah, you just had one. And it just, you know, it just goes like that sometimes. So, but I think though, it's a snowball effect too. Once other people see that other people are doing it, it kind of, you know, it's like you're gonna be the one slugging the neighborhood or whatever, so that helps do a little bit.
Do we have any more public comment?
Any problem with comments? Yeah, I got a comment on the storage unit there where the Lee nails and stuff is down there and that stuff. The new guy that bought that, whatever, down there and that, there's supposed to be a fence around the back side of that, but you go down there and look in that creek, there's mattresses laying in there and everything. The water can't even run through it to make it go through where it's supposed to go. And that's supposed to have been taken care of a long time ago, but it seems like nobody wants to get the rear in gear to even help a person do anything with the trailer park. And the storm shelter down there should be looked into again. It should be really condemned the way it is done down there and stuff. And that's part of the city. It don't belong to the trailer park, it belongs to the city of Mount Rosa tax-wise, because I went to the courthouse to find out if it did belong in the city, and it belongs in the city. But nobody seems to look at stuff down there. And 2 years ago, there was a guy down there in the trailer park on the other end down there, he was using junk appliances and stuff and cutting all the lines and everything, and the Freon was running down through that back creek and going back down to Pat Booth down there in that creek back there in that pond. But it seems like nobody wants to get up and go and listen to what I got to say, so I'm just sitting back and listening.
Which park is that?
It's the one behind the old
It's
Casey's.
all that holding pond.
And Mr. Henry, I did look into that, and where you're talking about the mattresses, the reason why they didn't is that's not city property, so they
The
they
trailer
can't
park
go
is
in
owned by
there.
a separate,
Yeah,
they're always,
and there was an inspector from Wright County that looked at the storm shelter, and he said, because we asked him to, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with it, he said he doesn't see any issues with it.
That storm shelter's in bad shape, if you go in there and look. Because when the roof was bad down there, the kids were up on their roof and cut holes in the back, and where the ladies' bathrooms and that stuff was up there when it was raining, the water would run down through the ladies' bathrooms and across the floor into the drain.
is that in the trailer park or is that someplace else?
It's part of the trailer park.
Yes, that's somebody, that's their property.
No,
But we,
but we pay city sewer and water down there, and we
We have-
collect money from them down there, and it's not really city property because we supply the water and the
Right.
sewer line down there. and stuff.
Right.
And they wouldn't even pay for that one battery in that one pump house down there and that stuff, and I told Wayne, when I was on the council that time, put a battery and that stuff in it, and make them pay for it. Or put
Well,
it on
yeah,
the tax.
there's an owner of the park. Who owns the park?
Mr. Griffith.
They have to take care of whatever is in the park.
Right.
I had this problem in Dassel with someone that wasn't taking care of it, and they ended up losing it. But, you know, if it's an issue with them not taking care of their own stuff, as far as the shelter goes or whatever, then that's the residents that have to get on.
It's not a city issue.
It's not the city's property.
That's just like the trailers that were bad down there. When I was mayor and Michelle was on the council, we worked together. And so there was dogs inside of them and everything, and we caught one young kid living in there. And we had the county come over, the Wright County attorney, and everything come over and caught that kid there in the morning. And there was stuff like that deep in there, and he was sleeping in that trailer. That's how bad it was. And I even had Charlie Burrell over here, our county commissioner. And now Griffith's got to deal with our county and the county commissioners now.
They're a problem.
And the city attorney on
Yeah,
Buffalo.
they can be a problem, there's no doubt.
That's
It's
the
a
only way
it's
you
a
can
tough one.
learn. They don't care what they do
Yeah.
or whatever they do.
Yeah.
And they get caught in the act on stuff, and then they don't want to admit to it
Yeah.
until you get to them face to face and then catch them in their lies.
Yeah, mobile home parks are a tough thing, because you've got, once it starts, that's where you end. I mean, the connection's right there, the meter's right there, and then it's theirs after that.
Well, if you don't clamp down on them, you might just as well let it be a ghetto and the heck with it.
Well, that's
that gives the
the
county
county's
money.
position. At that point, the county's gotta go in there. They're the ones that have to deal with that.
Well, the county.
Even if
If you're talking about condemning property and things like
Yeah,
that.
That's the
it
county.
sounds
County
like
has to
a
go
health and
and
human
make that
services issue
The
mostly.
city can't do that.
Charlie Burrell was our county commissioner, he'd like to see that park closed down.
Well, then, he should go in there and it's his
Well,
job.
I'm not on the council anymore or anything, I ain't got nobody to work with me to try and do anything down there to get something accomplished.
Well, it would, the county commissioners
That's who you need to
are
talk
the
to.
ones that need to
I talk
get
them
on.
all the time to see what's going on.
Charlie,
Charlie
Christine.
needs to get on the stick because they're the ones that gotta deal with it.
Christine, Hewsome, and who else is on that?
But once they start getting fined down there for some of the stuff that's going on down there, maybe they get their act together and clean up a little more.
Yeah, I can tell you the city's hand are in a lot of ways are tied on trailer parks because they're at.
And I know things could be done, and like I said before, with that creek down there and everything, the water can hardly run through it. But when Casey's store was there, if you'd send them a letter, send Griffin a letter, and send the storage unit guy a letter and say, we're gonna either clean up the creek down there and either you pay or put it on your taxes. They had a chance at one time when Highway 12 was done 24 years ago. Mathewicz told Dean Majors, he said, you buy the culverts down there and we'll put all that in and everything. We'll dig that out and the whole works. You just buy the culverts because we had to fill from Highway 12 with it, and then all level off. But no, there was no cooperation there either.
Okay. Hearing no further public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:45 and reopen the planning and zoning meeting. Old business? Deb, do you have any old business? No. Okay. New business, city planner updates.
With the holidays, it was kind of a slow month here, so we're kind of getting back into it now, starting kind of this week. So I'm going to call the guys at the Preserve Plat and see if they've gotten any work done on testing the utility lines. I think I talked about this last meeting too. They need to test the water lines and the sewer lines there. They're not sure if they're still intact. So
Hold the pressure.
yeah, that they hold pressure. So I have on my calendar to do that this week. And the renewable energy solar farm, that we're hoping that is going to be on the council agenda for February. And that's all I have. It's always quiet in December.
Does anybody else have anything to come before this meeting? Hearing no further business, I will entertain a motion. Next meeting is Wednesday, February 12th at 7 p.m. And hearing no further comments, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:40.
7:46.
I'll second it.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, meeting adjourned.
That clock over there said 7:40.
It's hard with the lights. You can't
Yeah,
see
it's
this.
7:40. My watch says 7:46.
That's what it
It's, it's there, I can't see it from here either, but.
You got a bad angle.
You're
Yeah,
right.
I think there's a glare on it.
Bad angle. There's a glare
Well,
on
then
that.
put